everyone, and welcome to another amazing episode of The Joy of Being for busy working mums and women in business and beyond who are seeking to unplug from their worries and overwhelm to light up with insight and joy. I, your host, mum, and effortless lifestyle coach Marina Pearson, talk to transformational professionals, business owners, and creatives about what it really takes to have a business and life you can truly enjoy. And remember, you can find me on Instagram at Marina Pearson or my Facebook group, The Joy of Being. And if you would like a more personalized touch to live a stress-free life, then why not find out more about the Joy of Being retreat, an intimate 4-day profound experience at a luxury venue in Javier, Spain, where you get to experience your inner calm and peace of mind by slowing down and making space. To find out more, email me at marina@marinapearson.com with Joy of Being Retreat in the title. So today I interview the wonderful Phil Goddard. Now, Phil isn't just a friend. He is also a stellar coach who has worked with athletes, organizations, and Hollywood actors to help them live a life of love and effectively more peace. And today we picked a topic that really flies in the face of what most personal development, self-help gurus and books talk about, which is you have to do something to help you get rid or move towards peace. Now, we took the conversation in a completely different direction and pondered, what if you don't actually need to do anything to end the suffering? What if, in fact, the search to end the suffering keeps you stuck in the suffering more of the time? And that's what we decided to explore today, because what I found is that during my journey in transformation over the last 14 years is that this very thing is true. So if you're wondering why none of the tools or the techniques or maybe even the seminars that you've been to have helped, and maybe you are looking for something that will catapult and accelerate that, then the good news is this: you actually don't need to do anything, or no, anything in particular for that to happen. So if you're curious, or if you know of anybody that is going through a tough time, or you are as well, then this is going to be a great episode for you. Enjoy. So welcome, Phil. I'm super excited to have you on the Joy of Being podcast today. And I invited you on because I've been loving your Facebook posts all around identity and who we think we are and our true nature and spirituality. And I'd love us to start with how you're seeing it right now, because often, you know, I've certainly seen that we're not our body, we're not our thinking, but I would love for you to share what you're seeing right now with regards to, you know, our identity, really.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be talking with you. Thank you. What I'm just seeing increasingly. Well, if I go back a step, because what I've seen for many, many, many years, I started looking at human behavior in 1998, and there has been this relentless quest to find something that will have us feel better, to have us be able to handle all that life presents us with. And, you know, the answer really is in is indeed in the title of this podcast, The Joy of Being. I mean, that's it. That's it in a nutshell. But I've subscribed to many ideas along the way in the past 20 years. I notice a lot of my writing has been around in the last probably 10 years, been around, you know, we are love, we are this, we are that. And I guess a little bit more recently, I've just started to see more and more through even that. So, some of the posts, I guess you've mentioned that you've seen me write, it's almost like we, for me at least, I can speak from my experience and probably can speak in limited terms to experience of some of my clients, is that there's this massive realization that we have that, oh, okay, so we're not our thinking. Maybe we're not even the thinker. Maybe all that's just going on, and that's all lovely. Which like subscribing into that idea, and don't get me wrong, that whole thing about, yes, I'm feeling my thinking, that really looks so true to me. Absolutely. And that's been really liberating in helping me and many, many people. It helps many, many people to see that there is some detachment. There is indeed some separation. I'm doing air quotes here. Some separation, because I'm sure we'll talk about that word a little bit more, between, our circumstances and how we experience all of our circumstances. And yet I've offered something that in order for you to feel good, to feel better. And mine has been for many years, well, you are love, you're the energy of love. And in some respects, like, I believe that to be true. But what I'm seeing more and more is, of course, that what that belief is made up of. It's made up of the same stuff as all of the things that have me suffer, all of the things I believe that have me suffer. So it really comes down to when somebody is presenting any kind of idea as truth, it's kind of a little red flag pops up, and sometimes it's more red. On some days, it's more red than other days. But I've got to just seeing through that, even just this whole idea of truth. So we can only ever present an idea, and that aligns perfectly with this. With our constant quest to find something that has us feel good, to make some kind of sense of this thing called life. And a lot of the stuff that's I've seen doing the round right now is when you discover like a true self, when you discover who you really are, then you feel peace. I read recently, it was something just either yesterday or the day before. It actually says, knowing that we're all one being, and having a real life experience of separation allows us to play full out at being human, right, with less suffering. And I think, well, how about just allowing the second part anyway? Like, do I really need to believe and know that we are all one for me to just play as a human being with less suffering? Do I really need to discover who I really am and understand who I am to suffer less? And I think, whilst, I think all of the intentions here are good, all of the intentions here are to help people indeed go through this thing called life with less suffering. But to me, that just looks like yet another concept, yet another idea. And I think it's much more helpful for us to see through all of it and see that we can play, engage, all of the sufferings normal. We don't have to believe anything. And indeed, we don't have to believe our beliefs, if that makes any sense.
So what I'm hearing is that in looking to find our true nature, looking to find that peace, it's just another way of moving away from the messiness of being human. In other words, the suffering. And what came to mind when you were talking was the sense of, well, actually, Sydney Banks' quote, which is, oh gosh, I'm going to not do it justice, actually. Save me here if I don't, actually. Which is, if only we weren't so scared of our experience, then that alone would change the world. Or something.
Yeah, and I don't know it word for word, so I'll probably paraphrase as well. It was exactly that, something along the lines of, if only we could learn to not be afraid of our experience, that alone would change the world. Absolutely. And I invite people to consider, well, what if you just give up that whole quest of needing to know who you are? Like, what if you really do not need to know who you are? What if you really do not need to know what your true essence is? What if you really do not need to know your true self? Like, really, if There is no search, because otherwise we are simply just giving something else, yet another idea for people to cling on to search for.
It's
And
almost like once I find my true self, then I can just be happy.
Indeed. Yeah. And to be honest with you, that's just as valid to say, well, once I find a blue banana, I'll be happy.
Oh, I like blue bananas, and they seem to make me happy, actually, Phil.
It's just as made up. Like, I get it. People tell me, oh, I've had that feeling. Believe me too. I've been exploring this stuff a very, very long time. And I can call it a trap. That does sound a little bit strong, but I have fallen into that trap. Oh, this is it. This is it. This is what I've been looking for. This is why. I've handed over my money, and this teacher is presenting something to me. Yeah. My goodness, that feels so true. Now I finally know. Now I'm relieved. Okay. Now I'll go out and live life to the full. It doesn't matter if I screw up, and I don't even have to try and be anybody. I just be me. It's such freedom in knowing this thing. Well, all of that beautiful feeling is available to you without you knowing anything. It's the search and the quest as part of that search that I think increases our suffering. This belief that we need to know. And I see these teachers are banging out that like, this is all we need to know. This is just this. You are one. You are one. Like, you know what? That might be true. We might get to whatever happens when our body dies. And we might really, really feel that we're in touch with that. But I think even the opposite to that could be true. Like, even what we think as our individual being and our individual expression of spirit, what if that breaks down even more, rather than actually we come back to going back to some idea of being like, how on earth can we know? How on earth can we know? And look, I don't want to really belittle it, because anything that does help somebody to feel good, if it's not to their detriment in any way, yeah, cool with that. Really cool with that. But that's not, to my mind, that's not the end game. That's not the backstop. I think there is this subtlety that can open it up even more. And that is to see, yeah, you like that idea, don't you? That feels really good. Well, there you go. That idea is made up too. So there's even more freedom than you'd believed. There's even more freedom available to us than the freedom in believing in we are one. And the freedom is that we don't have to believe anything.
And, even what you're saying there is also the way you're seeing it, as opposed to, and that could change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I might come across, a green leaf growing in somebody's garden that's the answer to, peace in the universe. And I'll be preaching about that. I mean, really, it is. I just see the complete made-up nature of it. The complete made-up nature of it all. Again, there's something I saw literally just before we come on the call. A friend of mine, and I get it. I mean, she's lovely. She writes this beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I don't really want to. This is really not personal. It's not. But I'm going to use like a last line to illustrate my point. There's this beautiful piece, and then there's this piece at the end: know who you are, then live it. And I think, well, up to then I was good, but now you've given me a condition. Oh shit, I've got to know who I am. So we're back to the search. And okay, then I'll find an answer. I'll find this idea of who I am, and then I can live it. No, really, you're here just to live.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday on a podcast, and we were talking about, the usual psychotherapy model, and how for me personally, it just really didn't help, because it was a constant navel gazing exercise of who am I? Why am I the way I am? And why have I become the way I've become? And I found it very confusing, because it was just made up, and there were all these concepts and constructs around who I am. And I remember there was this one night when I was lying in bed with pregnant with Leo in Bali, and this new thought popped into my head, which was a question, which was along the lines of, who am I when I'm not, a coach or all these labels that I put on myself? And all I heard was, I am. That was it. I didn't hear anything else. And I was waiting for the answer. And then I realized, oh, that is the answer. There's nothing that comes after that. And I don't need to know what comes after it, even if there was something. It's just, I am that. I am. And it was cool because it was like, oh, good. I can stop searching with regards to who I am. I know I am. That's it. I know I live. That's it. And it was very, very freeing to see that. And to see that I didn't need to keep searching and keep navel gazing as to who I am.
So are you saying you now get who you are, or that you get that you don't need to know who you are?
I don't need to know. That's what I saw.
Yeah, that's for me. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And that's just our idea, right? That's just...
Yeah. And that might change. Because I guess anyone that's listening in and then I go, yeah, but how does this even help me? Well, I guess there's a first instance where, the joy of being is just to be just, be who you be without the concern of who you are. That self-concern is what gets in the way. The self-concern of who am I, what judgment, kind of like the judgments that we have and the crazy moments that we have about beating ourselves up and all that sort of stuff. And asking these questions around, am I bad? Am I good? Am I, a good mum? Am I a good mother? Am I a good wife? Am I a good, all of those sorts of looking in that direction, I have found to be very, very unhelpful. So I guess the direction that me and Phil are taking this conversation in is really like, you don't need to know and it's fine. You just, as you say, need to live. And I think there's something to be said about, me and Phil may see this differently in a year's time. It might be interesting to have another podcast session with Phil to discuss this very same point, to see if you're seeing it in the same way. By then you might have turned into a green leaf. I don't know.
Who knows?
Or a blue banana.
There's this quote, I used to have it on the back of my business card. It's, we shall not cease from exploration. And the end of all of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. That's T.S. Eliot. I've got a slightly subtle, different take on that. It would be, and to realize we'll never know the place. And that's totally cool, dude. Not knowing is like the coolest thing going.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I don't know, that I guess there's freedom in that because you don't have to figure it out.
I think it does. And I think this is why there's so much discussion around it. That's probably the ultimate question that man has asked, men and women have asked for millennia. Who are we? Who am I? And for me and people that I've been working with recently, seeing that that's unanswerable has felt much more helpful than finding just yet another answer, yet another made up idea of an answer. Because the danger is, if that's something that can never be known, the chances are, if I buy into a particular concept now, which I have done, I have done, we are love. I've said that so many times. And in some respects, that to me, I believe that, but I see what the belief is made of, right? So the danger in that, of course, is that there'll just be yet another concept coming along sometime later. There will be a blue banana or a green leaf that shows up. Now, once I see how made up that all is, I'm just seeing like the multi layers of this, because I'm about to say something which I don't agree with completely. Once I see the made up nature of that, then yeah, I do see that it is all play. That is all play. Like it's all good. Like it's all good. Because I mean, I'll often say, and I can be quite provocative, and I generally am very loving and playful in discussions around this. And it's quite amusing to see how that can be taken personally, because I'm never being personal. But it's quite amusing to see how that's taken that way. I might suggest, yeah, that's a nice idea, my friend. That's a really nice idea. And then what's come back is, well, it's not an idea, it's the truth. And I think what people miss is, it looks to me like truth is also an idea. Truth is also an idea. Like here we are, Marina, sitting on this call, each of us in front of our computer or phone, whatever. I mean, is that true? I know it really looks like it. It really feels like it. And I can sit deeper into my chair and I can relax and breathe and really get in touch with what I think is my true self. Am I sitting here in front of the computer? You know, it's still an idea. We don't really know. Even when I was a young kid, you know, I used to have this thought arise occasionally that at some point during my life, somebody was going to pull off this, I guess, well, there had been virtual reality headset. I didn't even know what that was at the time, but something like that somebody would come along and pull off this virtual reality headset, a bit like the Matrix, I guess. And like, I fooled you. We don't know. We don't know anything. We don't know anything. So great. Play with your ideas and it feels good. Brilliant. But if you're holding on to an idea, because you think that reduces your suffering, let me tell you, you don't need any idea to reduce your suffering.
So it begs the question, at least what kind of occurs to me when I'm hearing you speak, is if someone is suffering and listening to this podcast, what next? Yeah,
indeed. What next? Well, I know that suffering comes and goes. I know that's one thing it looks like. I know it is. It's, you see, here we are finally, yes, we're exploring and talking about this human stuff, like delving into that. If you come to me and you're really suffering and I remind you, well, you're all one, that to me, it's never felt particularly helpful. It might once I'm through the majority of my suffering, but when I've been right down in the mire, as I know you have at times as well, Marina. We all have, right? We've had stuff going on. All I think that we're looking for is a way out of the suffering. A way out of the suffering. And, you know, some people take what they consider to be perhaps the ultimate way out. It's very sad. A way out of the suffering. You don't need to know anything to get out of the suffering. The suffering will subside. Suffering, again, we can cling to it. We can resist it. This kind of touches, it's a good segue actually into something else I wanted to really just touch on. I've had a very dear friend of mine come to me recently, the breakup, and all I could offer her was, I promise you it's going to change. I promise you it's going to look different at some point in time. I had pretty tough times last year, and I woke up one morning and thought, I feel different. The whole thing looks different. I could tell you what I did, everything what I did, but I don't think that matters. It's like, I think how we see things changes irrespective of all what we do, not because of it.
I loved what you said when we had Phil and I have conversations outside of our podcasts, and we were talking about this very thing, weren't we? And we were talking about how in the past, when I've been through 2 divorces, you have too, it seems. And
I've got that badge.
Yeah. I don't think I'll be going for my hat trick. Anyway, so we were talking about that very thing where inevitably you will see it differently, feel different. And what I heard in that was very much the same as, when you fall over and graze your knee or cut yourself, that your body takes care of it.
Yeah.
It heals without you needing to do anything about it. Okay, unless you break your leg or you have to go to the doctor and, put a plaster. But the point being is that with that support, your leg heals. I mean, that's incredible to me that we have this body that we're in that actually does stuff that we don't even need to think about.
It just does stuff, irrespective of whether we think we're all one or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just kind of happens. We don't need to buy into any idea for that to happen. In fact, the less ideas we buy into, the better, because that just simply allows whatever that is that's doing that healing, whatever it is. I've got no idea. Some will call it God, some call it spirit, universe, whatever. We've got 1,000 different names for it. Whatever that is, it will do its thing anyway.
Yeah, like kind of hearing you speak reminds me of those moments where my son Leo wouldn't sleep, or at least nighttime would come and I'd be like, oh God, here we go again. And when he was 1 or whatever, and he'd be there for hours, kind of going, oh God, can you just sleep now, please? And it was because my head would go into the moment of where this is never going to end. This is never going to end. He's going to be awake now for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
I'm going to be awake for the rest of my life too. Oh no. And it was in one of those moments that I realized this will end. It always does. And he will go to sleep. And so, and it's speaking to the same thing, which is your suffering will subside and you'll just carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I relate to that as well, by the way. I mean, when I was, I wrote about this a while ago, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I used to have nightmares when I was a kid. And I think around about the age like 7 or 8, I really can't remember it with any great accuracy. But I do have some mild recollection of it, what it was like. And it was, my mother would take me downstairs and we'd sit on the sofa together. I kind of sit on her lap or right beside her and she'd have her arm around me. And I was like half awake, half asleep. And I would be screaming in horror. I thought there was something coming, some kind of monster coming towards me. And all my mother did was just be with me. And these would be the small hours of the morning, right? 2 or 3 o'clock. But she would just be with me, not doing anything. Just be with me and hold me. And she wasn't trying to teach me anything.
We are one, Phil. She was saying, wasn't she saying, we are one? Doesn't that make you feel better?
She was just with me. Now, we could argue, well, my mother being with me reminds me that we're all one and reminds me of the womb and whatever. I don't know. But look, that's all. She was just with me. She was just with me. Now, my father, bless his heart, right, because that's what he thought was the best. He thought just put him back to bed. I didn't know this until much later when we spoke about it. Just put him back to bed. He'll get over it. Now, there's probably some truth in that, but I do think my mother being with me probably did help to, reduce the trauma that I was going through, where probably being abandoned and just thrown back in bed might have increased it. Perhaps. We'll never know, thankfully. But that was all there was to it. So coming back to that question, when somebody comes to us and they're suffering, well, my mother knew it would pass. My mother knew it would pass. So she was just with me in her knowing that it would pass.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. I remember listening to a recording of Bill Pettit's wife, and I cannot remember her name. Linda? Is it Linda? Oh.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, she was talking about this very thing. But
in Mrs. Pettit, I think.
Yeah. Yes, I guess that would make sense. And she was talking about this very thing where she had a client who was dying of, I think she was not dying of cancer, but she had cancer. And at one point, Linda, Miss Pettit, started to worry about her client. And her client turned around one day and said, "Stop it." And she goes, "What?" And she goes, "Stop worrying. You usually don't worry. And when you don't worry, it makes me realize that there's nothing to worry about."
Yeah. See, those conditions creep in all the time as well. In that, both sides of that coin. Do we think worrying helps? That's worry. Do we think not worrying helps? So that's why we tell people not to worry. I don't know that either is true.
Well, I think we've been conditioned possibly to think that if we don't worry, we don't care.
Yeah.
But actually what I've seen is when someone is suffering, the best way I can care for them is to actually know that it will pass and to see that it will pass.
Yeah, maybe this really is all about trust. If we want to give it a name and a label, because as humans we love to do that, don't we? Maybe this is all about trust. So if people are banging about some form of identity, be it we are love, we are one, we're bananas, whatever, that gives us something to trust in.
Something to hold on to.
Yeah, and you remind me, my mother called me up, this is a few years ago now, she called me up and she said, your brother's had a motorcycle accident, he's in hospital with a head injury, that's all we know. I just felt this incredible peace. Okay. That's all we know. Okay. I wasn't worried. I was concerned, as in that had some of my attention. That's what concern is. Okay, that has some of my attention, my loving attention. But I wasn't worried. There was an element of trust. In fact, I do remember thinking, oh, okay, well, whatever is wrong with him, he's in the hospital. That sounds like that's the best place. So there's like complete trust in whatever was going to happen.
It's like a roller coaster, kind of what came to mind. Like, I went on a roller coaster in Orlando recently called the Green Hulk. And granted, it was a full-on roller coaster. Like, it had I don't know how many loop-the-loops it had, but it had quite a few. And the G-force when you came out was just like full on. Like, you go up the ramp and it shoots out. Now, I hadn't been on any kind of roller coaster since having my son Leo. And I'd started to sort of realize that there were a few things that my body had changed. Like, I used to be able to read at the back of the car and no problem. But now I can't. Like, I feel very, very dizzy and very sick if I do. So I have to sit looking out the front. So I didn't realize that getting on roller coasters would have the same sort of effect on me. I mean, I was literally green by the time I got off that roller coaster ride. But here was the thing. I was standing in line and all I could do was worry about me going on this roller coaster. And I'm like, why am I putting myself through this? I'm just like, oh my God. Once I was on it, it was like, yeah, bring it on. And so what dawned on me while you were talking was, I think there's this resistance that we have to be human. Like, it's so painful. It's so full on. It's so intense. I just don't want to be here. But actually, it can be kind of fun. Like, I had a blast on that roller coaster ride. I shut my eyes. I screamed a bit. My knuckles probably went white. But it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Doesn't appeal to me, I have to say. Life is more than enough of a roller coaster. I mean, I really...
It's a great metaphor. Anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And I don't know that there really are. Okay, there probably are some teachers out there who are using their ideas of who we are or whatever to perhaps deflect us away from the experience of being human. Perhaps, but I don't know that that's true in all cases, and certainly not in some of the communities we've mixed with. I don't see that. I think my bone of contention, if you want, is that I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to buy into any idea to have us like fully experience life, to allow us to like play full out of being human. We really don't need anything for that. We don't need to understand anything. We don't need to know who we are. It's all good fun, all good, clean fun. Sometimes not so clean.
Yeah, sometimes very messy.
Yeah.
But going back to this of, I don't know about you, Phil, but I used to use alcohol and not eating and working 18-hour days to not feel. It was a great way to just numb any type of feeling that I was in. And but over time, I've realized that that very wanting to escape away from was actually keeping me stuck in this, I don't want to be human, which I am. We all are. And it was a question of like, well, what happens if I could just feel? Like, what would happen if I could just feel the suffering, feel the pain, feel those dark nights of the soul, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
Like when I was going through my divorce about a year and a half ago, there were moments where I wanted to just not be here anymore. Like literally, it was weird. It was like, the old suicide thoughts came back. It was quite bizarre. I thought they'd gone. I thought they'd disappeared. I thought they'd been put to bed, but they reared their ugly head again. And there were nights where I was like, I'm done. Like, take me. Like, I don't know how you're going to take me. Give me some sort of bad illness or whatever. Just take me. I don't want to be here. I don't want to feel the way I'm feeling. And then the next day, it wouldn't be there anymore. Another moment had come in, and I was back to kind of being normal. Just it wasn't as intense. So it was almost like, I don't want to say getting comfortable with, but just experimenting with this feeling thing. Like, oh, I feel, oh, that's really intense. Oh, like a bit like the roller coaster, which is like, oh my God. Oh, it passed. Oh, it started again and it passed again. And so there was this sense of this loosening away of this fear I had about feeling, needing, avoiding those feelings. Can you identify with that? Is there something?
Oh, totally. And it is. Oh, how much of our life energy do we put into trying to avoid experiences? I mean, wow. As you said,
I do it.
Alcohol, eating, good gracious. And the people I think are having the most fun in life seem to be doing that less, as to not putting so much energy into avoiding experiences. It's completely okay and natural to feel suicidal and to consider that, to have those thoughts come and arise. That is completely natural. And it really is.
It is?
Yes. As far as I can make out. I don't know, as a human being, I can have a thought and a feeling that's unnatural. Certainly look, there's no feeling and thought I can have, to me, that as a human I'm not meant to have. Otherwise I wouldn't have it. I'm just human. It's like, it comes, it goes. It just makes sense to me. And I don't have to do anything with it. I think that's the point that we're what we're alluding to. Really, all of this stuff, we don't have to do anything with that. We don't have to try and avoid that. Just like people who have suicidal thoughts, right? And okay, so I can speak personally about this because I made a suicide attempt in my 20s. So I will say, instead of generalizing, I will say that I felt suicidal and felt I had to then therefore take action to avoid no longer feeling suicidal. But you know what? Since then, I have had similar feelings and thoughts arise and have not taken any action, and it has passed. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it's Michael Neal or whatever is suggesting. I started writing a piece about this term we use, rest in peace. We, once people have passed, we wish them, don't we? Rest in peace. It's perfect. It's perfectly possible for us to rest in peace whilst we're still around. We just have to allow it. It will and can come. It can and will come. When we are no longer putting so much energy into change our experience tends to change
on its own. I remember you and I seem to have very similar pasts. I had a suicide attempt in my 20s, and then in my 30s, I went through a very painful divorce, or at least it looked very painful to me. And what was interesting about this is that there had already been some sort of a shift in thinking, because I didn't stop myself, although I thought about it. I did something else. I took myself to the hospital for them to give me something to calm me down. So that was a very, 10 years on. Now, I didn't know about personal development. I didn't know about, changing my consciousness or anything like that. Now looking back on that, I'm like, oh, actually, I must have had some sort of an insight or some sort of new thought pop into my head that changed the way that I acted on that very thing. And now, 10 years on, it seems to happen every 10 years, actually. So I didn't even go to hospital. So it was literally like, take me. And then the next day I was like, oh, whatever that was is gone. So it seems that you can still experience the same thing in the same intensity, because it looked to me like it was the same intensity, but have a different experience of it, or at least your actions around it change.
Well, I think our relationship with our experience can change. Certainly, I think mine has. I think when we I'm doing it again, aren't I? Being prescriptive. Once we see how our experience is created, it does look like that kind of loosens things up a little. So I can see, I was saying last year when talking to my friends, wow, I've felt like worse than I felt, when my first marriage broke up, my family fell apart, I felt worse than that, but better equipped to handle it. Now, I don't even know if that's true, because I don't really know how I felt when my first marriage broke up. It felt horrendous. All I've got is memory of it, and that memory is completely fabricated now. So I don't really know. But at the time, it was looking like, oh yeah, I feel so broken down, sad, upset. But yeah, I get that I'm better equipped to handle it. And you know what? That's part of the illusion as well. I'm better equipped. Well, not really, because I don't have anything more now than I did, 20 years ago when that marriage broke down. It just looks different.
When I going back to what you said about it passing, it reminded me of a moment where I was in Bali and I decided to meditate one day, and I sat on the bale outside and had been sitting for about 5 minutes and suddenly felt this very uncomfortable feeling in between my legs. Burning feeling. And I realized, oh, bugger, I've been bitten by a mosquito. And my usual reaction to being bitten by a mosquito would be to scratch it. And then it would itch even more and so forth. And I was just about to do that when a new thought popped into my head that said, don't leave it. And I was like, okay, I'll just do that then. And what was really cool was that literally 2 minutes later, it stopped itching. The pain had subsided, and so had the burning feeling. And that's when I realized, I was like, oh, what if I just left things alone? They just seem to go away on their own.
Mm-hmm. That's funny. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I don't need to itch or scratch it and make it bleed. And then wait for the what's the stuff that comes after it bleeds? The skin, the crusty skin on the top.
Yeah, great.
I could just let it be, and it will just go by itself, and I can just not bother with any of the other bits.
Had an almost identical experience, by the way, while I was in Greece a couple of weeks ago, walking. It's really funny, isn't it? And I had exactly the same thought. I was walking from Sillavi, the place where I stay, into Zante Town, which is about an hour's walk. Really beautiful. And I got bitten on my leg. And I remember exactly that. I remember exactly where I was on that walk, because it was a very, like, automatically would reach down, or I'd stop and give it a rub and a scratch and whatever. And I just thought, God, yeah, but yeah, that stings. That hurts. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to carry on walking. And actually, until you mentioned it, I'd forgotten about it completely since.
But it went away on its own.
It went away on its own without me knowing who I was. It's a funny game. It's a funny game, Marina. And it's all made up. I just see it so much. It's all, like, everything is made up. Even that stuff that we feel with all of our might is so true. It's all made up. I don't know who it was. It's an NLP guy. Oh my goodness, can't think of his name now because I haven't touched any NLP for like 10 years or more. Richard Bandler, maybe. Anyway, it might have been the other one. Who said something like, there are people all over the world stuck in various stages of my personal development. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. Because what he's saying is there are things that he preached and taught that people have taken that really on board as truth and clung to it. And he's moved on. He sees something different. And all what we've spoken about today, Marina, not only might look different in a year's time, it probably will look different in a year's time. And when I think that, for me, currently, that's what really looks helpful. Some clients recently have really got that, who have for years and years been searching for something. They've studied A Course in Miracles, all of the Enneagram stuff, the 3 principles. I mean, you name it, all the Byron Katie stuff and whatever. And just come to see, everything, it's all made up and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's a nice idea and doesn't matter. A client said to me recently that his takeaway was, nice idea, doesn't matter.
Yeah, what I heard in what you said is that when you that it's when you see something and then you see it differently, and you know that that is actually it's almost like an evolution of well, it's an evolution really of how you see things, and they change and what have you. That you don't need to cling on to what you see right now as truth.
I'm watching a movie even when I don't think I'm watching a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And it lessens its grip, like this idea that that is truth and that it will be like that forever.
Oh,
like,
it's become, for me at least, it just seems much more amusing. Much more amusing. And indeed, so I made this post about my dad on Father's Day. So we're recording this a few days after Father's Day. And I made this post because I've like for years and years and years, I clung on to my own opinions about my dad. And it was only last year where we reconnected, and I had been seeing, for quite some time what my opinions were made of, except in this one area with my dad. And it was, I think it was in giving less credence to my own opinion that I was able to understand his a little more. And for years and years, we hadn't really connected or been close because of the importance, the self-importance we were giving to our own opinions. And a few people reached out to me after that post, and I've spoken to a few people one-on-one privately, and it's the suffering through either, it was actually with one person with a mother and two people with their dad. And it's those three people are all suffering for the same reason. And that was the credence they're giving to their own opinion. And one person said to me, "Oh my goodness, it's such a relief in realizing I don't actually have to change my opinion. That's what they've been trying to do for years and years. Oh, I don't have to change my opinion about my parent. Oh, thank God." Because I've been struggling with trying to change my opinion, because it would be like lying to myself to think it was okay for my parent to behave in this way. I don't have to change. No, you don't have to change your opinion. The freedom is in seeing that it's your opinion. It's your opinion. That's it. It's made of the same stuff as your parents' opinion, as my opinion. My idea. It's all made of that same stuff. And that, for this person I spoke to, that, it's like so much relief in seeing that. Just so much relief in just seeing, that they had been pitching one made up idea against another. And that's all we're ever doing. It really is actually all we're ever doing. So I don't have to come up with what I think is a better idea. I don't have to come up with an idea of, well, we're all one, which might well be true. And, in the deeper part of my being, I can imagine it to be true, or anything else, or really any other idea that we are God, that we are love. I can come up with all of those ideas, but just see that too is made up. Phew.
Takes the pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of this, you can be right or be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I'm right and happy, and sometimes I'm wrong and happy.
I used to think that you would have to agree in order for someone to I see this differently now, where two people can think very differently, and the majority of us do, and not agree, but that doesn't mean anything.
Unless we decide it does.
Yeah, unless we decide it does. But I used to give it so much meaning as to they don't agree, and because they don't agree, they don't love me, and because they don't love me, I'm nothing, and blah, blah, blah. As opposed to, they have their opinion, I have mine, we don't agree. That's it. Well, that's it.
And maybe this is why I got a little worked up about it, to be frank. I was having a discussion. I got involved in a Facebook debate and around this stuff. And somebody said, "Oh, don't worry, mate. You'll get there eventually."
What do you mean? What do you mean?
And exactly that. But the thing is, whilst I could get worked up about it, I could see that I'm getting worked up about it. And I find it really funny. Even at the time, I could see. So I guess I'm kind of blessed in that respect. But I'm also, then there is that mischievous side of me that says, yeah, okay, I'll play. I'll play. So I carried on and engaged, and it kind of went downhill from there a little bit. But so maybe that wasn't a wise choice. Who knows? But it's just funny to observe how when somebody doesn't have the same opinion as us, we have that thinking going on. Like, this guy was saying, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get there eventually." As in, well, I'm right, and you'll discover it eventually. Or you'll come to the same conclusion as me eventually. That's just hilarious to me.
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those weird quirks that we have as human beings, that we want everybody to actually think the same.
I did say that is hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
It's not going to happen in the sense that we all live in the separate realities. So, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, I'm not just laughing at their opinion. I'm laughing at the idea of opinion. I laugh at my own opinion all the time, laughing and catching myself. I always say it's not the content of somebody's conviction that fascinates me. It's the strength of their conviction that fascinates me.
Yeah, I love that. And what would happen if we let go of that conviction?
Yeah.
It would just be more playful.
Mm-hmm.
So, Phil, what are you giving yourself permission to do more of these days?
Oh, I don't even know if I need permission to do anything, do I? No. So maybe I'm giving myself more permission to not require permission.
Well, thanks for that. I really appreciate it.
So welcome.
Thanks to everybody that's been listening today. Phil, if anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I'm reasonably active on Facebook, and I made it very easy for you to find me by going to fbphil.com. So that's fbphil.com. And you can also find my email address and a few other things, and find my podcast on my website, which is philg.com.
Yeah, and it's a great podcast, this Coaching Life. I loved it. And
I've had some great guests on there, Marina.
Yeah, I know. Like, especially one of them, Marina. She's apparently supposed to be.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation, as always.
As always. And for those of you that have been listening in, I hope you enjoyed it and got as much out of it as I did. Until the next time, bye-bye for now. And there you have it, another wonderful episode of The Joy of Being. If you loved what you heard here today and it's been helpful, why not subscribe or share the podcast with others? And if you're curious as to how you can experience more joy in your life and feel carefree, then I invite you to download your Joy Catalyst scorecard at www.marinapearson.com/scorecard, which will help you identify the joy gaps and what you can do to fill them. And remember, you can find me on Instagram at Marina Pearson or my Facebook group, The Joy of Being. So until next week's episode, remember, you are the joy you seek.